Hey folks, and welcome to another video from A Plain Truth. This is a video you just saw a snippet of was coming from a town council meeting. I think it was this morning on February 4th in Paradise, and the people are royally pissed. They're finding out the same exact things that we found out here in Santa Rosa with the cleanup that started afterwards. And what I didn't record, but what was stated that I heard, was that 1.5 or $1.7 billion in funding was being withheld from the people of Paradise for the cleanup by FEMA unless they agreed to FEMA's terms, which we're going to get into in a little bit. FEMA has a 50-acre encampment next to the Chico Airport. It was set up before the Paradise fires. PG&E down the road from Paradise on Skyway has a massive operation that was set up before the Paradise fires occurred on that fateful day, November 8th. So what is going on with the cleanup process? Why are the people pissed? One, because they're not allowed to get back into their homes, but also they're being strong-armed that they can't go move back in or start any of the rebuilding process because they're being told that it has toxicity, which they're going to find out more about, but also that FEMA is directing the terms of how local city council operates, and their hands are being held literally to the fire, but at the Paradise meetings, the ordinances and whatnot doesn't make any difference. It's all about the money and all about the connections. So here, California's cleanup of the Camp Fire, the largest post-disaster project of its kind in state history. An engineering firm with a subsidiary unit was caught falsifying soil tests during the cleanup of a former shipyard in San Francisco, as was awarded one of the first contracts for the Camp Fire project. Then Trump tweeted a threat this week that he may withhold federal emergency funds to California, which are expected to cover 75% of the cleanup cost. So far, only about a third of eligible burned-out property owners in the hills around Paradise have agreed to be part of the government-run cleanup, federal government, prompting concerned Butte County leaders to schedule a press conference urging residents to sign up before a looming end of the January deadline. So this is why they're strong-arming, and you just heard the inept, disgraced city council there of Paradise saying, it's out of our hands, we can't do anything about it. Some leaders. 3.5 billion operation will be by far the most extensive post-disaster cleanup the city's had to deal with. Tetra Tech, the firm hired by state officials to test potentially contaminated soil, is parent company to Tetra Tech EC, which has been sued by the U.S. Department of Justice for faking soil samples during the cleanup project. 2 company supervisors pleaded guilty last year and were sentenced to prison. Now, we'll get back to Tetra Tech in a minute, but here's the articles from California from the Santa Rosa fires that occurred back in October 8th of 2017. U.S. EPA to oversee the rebuilding. 100,000 acres have been burned, and so the EPA is taking over the cleanup. So you can see here in these articles, the Fountain Grove residents, which is up here in the Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa, are royally upset because as the cleanup got underway in October, 2 weeks after the fire, property owners have groused about the requirement stipulated in the contract they had to sign to participate in the government-funded program that they will allow foundations to be removed. Very frustrating, said Todd Wright. They promised us full removal. That's what some people got, but not others. And it goes on that they just delayed it, and then as the 1.3 billion government-sponsored debris removal is nearing completion, Sonoma County, which bore the brunt, including 882 home sites, were finding that the cleanup began in November with high anxiety of a requirement that the property owners participating in the government-funded cleanup agree to turn over any portion of their insurance earmarked for debris removal. Gore was highly critical of the contract dispute between 2 of the private companies hired by the Army Corps of Engineers, Ashbright Inc. of Florida and Burlingame-based EEC, that delayed the removal. So they were awarded federal contracts. The people had no say. They were strong-armed. We went, Deborah Tavares and myself went to the Veterans Administration Hall when they were strong-arming everybody to sign over their insurance to FEMA, and then FEMA negotiates with the agencies, and the people are screwed because 97% of them finding out they don't have enough insurance to rebuild. So we look at who the players are in this, and this is what I've been getting into, and I want to keep hounding. Here right 2 days after the fires began in Santa Rosa, October 8th and 9th, Rebuild North Bay founder Darius Anderson was in Washington, D.C. Anderson posted on Facebook that he was in the Capitol advocating with caring elected officials and concerned business leaders to help the fire survivors of 2017. Who is Darius Anderson? He's owner of the Sonoma Media Group, owner of the Press Democrat newspaper. He's also a PG&E lobbyist. And he's the one that tapped James Lee Witt, the former buddy of Clinton FEMA director, to come in and take over the Rebuild North Bay project. A newspaper guy, a lobbyist for PG&E, hires the FEMA guy. Anderson's trip came on the heels of news that Rebuild North Bay had partnered with disaster recovery agent Ash Britt to donate almost $500,000. Ash Britt has been go-to company for FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers since Hurricane Katrina in 2005. One leading candidate out of the gate is James Lee Witt, who Anderson previously tapped for his nonprofit. Witt remains a disaster capitalist power broker in his own right. He's the former head of FEMA, so-called friend of Bill Clinton. As the Bohemian reported, he's also the head of several disaster service companies, for-profit, including, if you look up Secor, publicly traded company Secor, and O'Brien Witt under the subcategory, you'll see that he makes money on disasters. They filed in 2017 for the fourth quarter. They made some $15 million in disaster recovery from Hurricane Harvey. They're profiteers coming in, hired by a newspaper reporter and a PG lobbyist. He's also and private equity funds devoted to attractive investments in large infrastructure projects. Yes, he has the E5, E6 visa programs as private corporations that bring in Indians and Chinese managers to come in and take over jobs from people in the United States to rebuild. He profits from the disasters, disaster capitalism. Ash Britt was created by well-connected Republicans in the 1990s in an effort spearheaded by former Republican Chairman Haley Barbour. And then we go over to here to understand a little bit better. Ash Britt, a Florida-based firm, has close ties with Florida Governor and presidential brother Jeb Bush. Ash Britt's CEO is a major donor to state and federal GOP candidates. James Lee Witt Associates is Louisiana's disaster consultant. Americold Logistics of Atlanta retained Witt's former prior to the hurricane, which paid $40,000 in fees. And here is the article in the Bohemian local paper, local rag here. James Lee Witt, the Bill Clinton era FEMA. He headed FEMA in the 1990s, but more recently founded a corporation called EB5 Global Management LLC, capitalizing on U.S. law that grants fast-track permanent residence to status to foreign nationals in exchange for large investments in American development projects. He has offices in D.C., Little Rock, Arkansas, and was registered in Delaware in August of 2015. According to his website, the EB5 Global Management sets out to form, fund, and manage special purpose limited partnerships to loan money to companies creating jobs in the United States. We align the capital requirements of domestic developers and entrepreneurs with the immigration goals of our EB5 investors. That's you, dude. EB5 visas are granted to foreigners who make investments of at least $500,000 in areas with high unemployment or $1 million elsewhere, in exchange to guarantee 10 full-time jobs for every $1 million invested. Since its inception, the program has been used to finance hotels, retail space, Las Vegas casinos, and also $6 billion in Treasure Island development project now underway in San Francisco was undertaken with EB5 loans provided to the Lennar Corporation, the nation's second largest home builder. And then you got Darius Anderson, who I was just talking about here, prominent Sacramento lobbyist. They don't talk about the PG&E lobbyist he is, but he's a lobbyist with the state of California, stashed in casinos in Las Vegas. He also lobbies for Tesla, General Motors, Canacraft, and Robertson's Ready Mix Concrete. Hey, do you think they make any money, Ready Mix Concrete, if he's lobbying for them? Witt's office did not respond to a request for comment about his EB5 global management firm and what role he may play. What they don't say is these guys that come over here from 10 full-time jobs get granted full legal immigration, full legal status in the United States once they come over here. What a scumbag.